This video is proudly sponsored by Gamersgate. Download games anytime, anywhere. Visit Gamersgate.com.
Show me what you...
Coming in super hot on the heels of Batman Arkham City, Arkham Origins is the latest open-world Metroidvania beat-em-up starring everyone's favorite stealthy and brooding superhero. Gamers don the cowl and cape of Batman once again, this time early in his career, long before Arkham Asylum is reopened to treat Gotham's supervillains. So long, in fact, it's curious why the notorious Asylum's name is used at all in the title. That's brand identity for you. Black Mask has it out for Batman, and has placed a $50 million bounty on his head. Therefore, a spattering of supervillains, from Bane to Firefly to Copperhead, are running amok in Gotham to scare Batman out into the open and cash in on his corpse. As Batman zooms from one end of town to the other to stop the various disasters that arise through the night, he can micromanage the city's crime by beating up minor criminals on the streets, or crooked cops taking advantage of the weak. Beating up baddies grants experience points, which can be cashed in to upgrade his abilities and stats. Of course, new gadgets are unlocked as the main story progresses, which will allow you to access different areas on the map. If you've played either of the previous Arkham games, combat and travel will be secondhand to you by now. For newcomers in the series, Arkham Origins features a nearly seamless fight system called Free Flow, allowing players to counter incoming blows, chain attacks, and even mix in the use of gadgets to create a beautiful but devastating combat experience. The fight system hasn't changed much since Arkham City, but there is a handful of new thug types, and the special takedown and disarming abilities are unlocked and executed slightly differently. If you are an old hand at Arkham games and haven't played the game on hard mode yet, now is the time. After 2 entries in the series, most players will recognize the telltale signs of incoming attacks. To travel, Batman uses his signature Batclaw and grappling hook to zip from high point to high point, but he can also glide and dive with his cape fully extended. Because the map is on the larger side, players can unlock fast travel with the Batwing by disabling jamming towers that have been set up by the Riddler. Supervillains are typically held up in their own urban strongholds, like abandoned courthouses and cordoned off sections of the sewers, so there are major portions of the game exploring interior environments as well. On its own, Arkham Origins is a decent game. The fight system is fantastic, the music is typical Batman fare. Though Kevin Conroy hasn't voiced Batman, the role is held competently by Roger Craig Smith, who also voiced Ezio from the Assassin's Creed series. The story is a little on the weak side, but it does take a fun twist or two. But it's more interesting watching Batman's interactions with Alfred, James, and Barbara Gordon. The environment and models are a bit more morose this time around, despite all the festive Christmas decorations and snowfall. This is a darker Batman than before. But fans of the series will see that not much new is coming from Arkham Origins, aside from the larger map and the added multiplayer. There is something to be said about reusing assets from previous games in the series to make the game familiar for fans, but Origins recycles so much, the game, for the most part, feels redundant. Large chunks of the map are lifted right out of Arkham City and put into Arkham Origins, but spruced up a little bit with a few new holiday decorations. Even some interior environments, like the abandoned courthouse, are simply copied and pasted from one game into the other. For players who have Deathstroke available to use in the challenge rooms, you'll find his fight animations are just Robin's from Arkham City. We were incredibly disappointed with the lack of innovation. If those redundancy issues weren't enough, gamers everywhere are having technical issues with Origins as well. Camera functionality seems more invasive than in past games, enemies have been known to act incredibly erratically, and we even experienced a side quest halting bug where Batman refused to escape through a vent that prevented us from solving all of the Riddler's puzzles. Certainly these issues can, and most likely will, be patched out. Aside from the technical issues we ran into, the boss encounters were all on the easy and boring side, with the exception of fighting Bane and Deadshot. And we were sad to see the game leans more heavily on the beat-em-up side of Batman's life, and much less on the stealth. Despite the fact that Gotham is meant to be a booming city, no citizens can be seen walking the streets, and no cars can be found traveling on the roads. The lack of cars and civilians made sense in the previous Arkham games because they both took place entirely within the confines of a prison environment. Gotham is meant to be alive with both light and dark sides. The Gotham presented here feels completely lifeless, and it's distracting. Multiplayer is set as a competitive asymmetrical deathmatch. Two sides of villains compete for control of territories and respawn points. If one side of villains gains more control, they can call in their supervillain from their side to further tip the odds in their favor. To keep the competition constantly on its toes, two players are selected as Batman and Robin, who can swoop in from the shadows and silently knock out their enemies. The hero team can win by inflicting fear points into both teams. It's a fairly interesting concept, and it's executed pretty well, and should keep a few gamers entertained until the next big thing comes along. For the most part, Batman Arkham Origins plays it entirely too safe when the series has so much room for growth. Warner Bros. Games Montreal could have done so much to take the series into new and interesting directions. They could have set the game with Wayne Tower as the central high point. They could have introduced cooperative play with Robin. They could have made the story deeper, with fewer supervillains. They could have, but they didn't. And what we're left with is a game that feels like Arkham City version 1.5 beta instead of something new and interesting. The added bugs and crashes didn't help much at all either. Single player took about 18 hours for us to complete, which is admirable for a single player game. On PC, there are plenty of options to tinker with so you can get the most out of your system. We saw a pretty solid frame rate through the most part of the game, but saw some dips in performance when gliding through the cities, and oddly, during some cutscenes. We still have faith in the Batman franchise, but hopefully the next iteration won't be afraid to take some bold and brave new steps. If you're a gigantic superfan, you probably already own the game. We recommend waiting for the game to go on sale before picking it up. It's a good game, but not nearly as good as the original or Arkham City. If you're new to the series, we recommend going back to the original and starting from there.